Hey, Jeremy here from CGE Jordan in Amman, and today we're going to be learning the alphabet, how to read and write the Arabic alphabet. We're going to skip the first letter and get to that at the end. But first thing, if you've seen any other YouTube videos, you've noticed that there's lots of videos on the alphabet, but almost all of them do only one form of the 4 ways to write the letter. We call this the solitaire form. That's when it's by itself. When it starts a word, it looks like this. When it's in the middle of the word, it looks like this. And when it ends a word, it looks like this. Ironically, you don't actually see the solitaire form hardly at all, and yet this is how most people teach people the alphabet. If you've looked at any Arabic script, you may have noticed that there's lots of these little ticks everywhere. And you really have to pay attention to the dots. The dots are super important. With the B, it's just a dot underneath. Some students are tempted. They think that this tick is representative of this right here. And so they want to put the dot sort of to the side. And that would not be correct. The dot should go directly below or directly above the consonant. So this letter, it makes a B sound. Now, in Arabic, you have a name for the letter and you have the sound that it makes. Just like in English, we have a H or H, which actually makes a H sound. So when you read a letter with an H in it, you don't say H, or you just make the sound that it makes. So lots of students confuse that, though. You want to be wary, and to avoid that, I'm going to not teach you the name of the letter, just rather its sound. So this is a B sound. Now, there are several other consonants which just have this little tick here, and they put other dots. We'll go over these later. Some put a dot. For another consonant, you put a dot above, or 2 dots, or 2 dots below, and so it gets really confusing. But an easy way to remember the B is that B goes on bottom. B is for bottom. Dot on bottom, B. Okay. The next letter is a T sound. Now, this is quite similar. Just that tick. If you're starting a consonant, a word, like this. Now the 2 dots, when you write it with your pen, it's actually just a line on top. And an easy way to remember this is like the English cursive T, right? You put a line through it. Well, if you just raise that a little bit higher, you have an Arabic T when it ends a word. The next letter is a th sound, equivalent to the English TH. Now, when you write this letter, you make a hat instead of writing 3 little dots. You can do that, but Arabs almost never do that. It's way too pedantic for them. So they just make a little hat, like this. Th. This makes a j sound. It can be pronounced either way. Like the word camel actually comes from Semitic languages, and they say Gemal or Gemal. Gemal. And it starts with this letter. The way we write this, it's a little bit different than how you see it here. It's a little triangle like this with a dot on the bottom. Now when you write it in the middle of a word, you have to anticipate that you're going to write this and the line needs to be higher. Like this. See how that line is higher and then lower as we end. Same thing for at the end of a word. That was ugly. You want to make that tail like so. Let's try that again. Like this. Ja. Now, the next 2 actually have the exact same form, but they're distinguished by the presence or absence of a dot With the ja, it's below. With this one, there's no dot, and the next one you'll see there's a dot above. Now this one is tricky because it's very difficult for Americans to say. So the way you say it there, it's sort of like the H, but it's deeper. It's not actually deeper, it's actually higher, but it involves contractions of throat muscles that you use when you swallow. So in English, in fact, most languages never use these muscles, but here in Arabic, they use them all the time. This is very, very common letter, and you have to really master how to say this. So around your Adam's apple, you have tons of different muscles, but in order to say this correctly, it's good to actually put your hand around it, and you should feel a contraction going up like that. If you don't feel a contraction, then you're not saying this letter right, but it's a raspy type sound, just like so. And after it, we have the ch sound. This is the more common, it's not common in English, but in several languages have this. For instance, German, Dutch, Hebrew. That's the sound it makes. And it's written the exact same way as the jim, or as the ja, but you put a dot above, like so. Now we're going to come to our first non-connecting letters. So by non-connecting, they do connect at the beginning. When it's by itself, it's like this, but when it comes after a letter, it looks like that. By non-connecting, I mean that anything that comes after it does not connect. And that's actually a key way to distinguish what you're looking at, is the fact that it doesn't connect. So this is a duh, makes a duh sound, just like the English D. Next to it is a related consonant, and you can see, just put a dot above it, and now we have a the sound. You don't want to confuse this with the th. The only difference between these two is that this is voiced, what we call voiced, and this is unvoiced. Pretty much every language, you can take all the letters in that language and divide them up between voiced and non-voiced. A really easy way to illustrate this is what's the difference between S and Z. You can actually have your mouth in the exact same position and switch between the two by making your vocal cords voiced or unvoiced. For instance, that is what linguists call voiced. So with this, the th is unvoiced and the is voiced. And I can do the exact same thing. Now our next letter, we have also two other non-connecting letters. This is the r. It's equivalent to the English trilled R, or flapped R. Sometimes it's trilled, sometimes it's flapped. Just like so. And this one, even though it looks like these would be related, they're actually not. This is a Z, just like in English Z. Z. And just distinguished by that dot above. And that is part 1. Stay tuned for part 2 and the rest of the alphabet.